All right, I think we are about ready to begin. I want to say good morning and good afternoon to everyone on the East Coast. I want to thank everybody who's attending. We have another great turnout for our latest webinar in the NIMBL lecture series, Learn How to Scope and Plan Your SAP S/4HANA Upgrade. I'm Jake Eisbart, part of the marketing team. A little bit about us. We are SAP technologists at NIMBL and SAP ecosystem thought leaders. Our consulting business, which is 50% of our work, delivers SAP projects, both technical and functional, while our Denver-based business, SAP Managed Services, the other 50%, supports both the Fortune 1000 and mid-market 24/7 across 20-plus SAP skill sets. While our projects tend to be technical in nature, HANA, UX, and so on, we likewise do provide deliverable-based SAP functional business process and PMO services. So here's a list of some of the services that we offer. Obviously, today we will be talking about S/4HANA, and here is our list of some of the customers that we have. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. We want to be able to answer as many questions as possible. So if you take a look at the word bubble in the lower right, left-hand corner, of your screen, feel free to ask any questions to our presenter, Michael, and they will be answered at the end of the presentation. Also, just so you know, everybody will be receiving a fully edited copy of this presentation afterwards. So if you miss anything, don't worry about it. You'll get a full copy. So let's skip right to our presenter. Our presenter is Michael Pytel. Michael Pytel is a certified SAP NetWeaver and SAP HANA and Soulman resource, possessing over 10 years of technical SAP implementation expertise, with over 13 years, of overall ERP project experience. He's the author of SAP Press's Implementing SAP Business Suite on SAP HANA, nationally recognized speaker, and he frequently presents at SAP conferences across the country, and most recently at HANA 2017. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Michael. Michael, go ahead and take it away.
Fantastic, Jake. Well, thank you for the introduction. Everybody, today we have a full agenda. We will utilize the entire hour, so we want to make sure that you're able to ask questions throughout the presentation through the chat panel, and then we will unmute some lines after today's presentation to let everybody speak, have questions live. So real quick. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what's available to install today. We're going to talk a little bit about some third-party tools that might help your S4 project. NIMBL as a company, we've always been one to really highlight only the things that you own, right? Things that you own and tools that we own that we can implement. But there are some third-party products out there that we have found that add some value. I'll talk a little bit about those. I want to talk about the tools you own, again, with Solution Manager, some other opportunities out there. And then I want to talk about the landscape strategies and the project team, right? So who needs to be involved on an S4 project? All right, so diving right into it. Release planning. Number one, right now it is our belief that S4HANA 16.10 is the go-to release for S4HANA right now. So S4 16.10 was released in October of last year, was released on October 31st, the last day of the month, so that they could meet that deadline of calling it 16.10. And we have our first feature pack being released right now, actually. So feature pack 01 is being released for S4 16.10. That is very interesting and new, right? So it's the first feature pack. We haven't installed it yet. As soon as we get that installed, we will share those details with everybody. Now, thinking ahead, you also have S4HANA 17.09 being released with a new NetWeaver stack in September of this year. So as we look to decide when are we moving to S4, we have some customers that have gone the conservative route and said 15.11. I disagree with that decision personally, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. We have S4 16.05 customers live, which we like and we love, and then 16.10 again is our kind of our go-to release. In terms of conversion paths, I think it's important to talk about how do we get there. Number one, for those customers on the phone or on the webinar today that are non-Unicode, so if you're non-Unicode and you have to go through that Unicode conversion, unfortunately, SAP does not allow for a non-Unicode conversion to S/4HANA 16.10. And the reason why is you need to have an SAP kernel that supports the non-Unicode and Unicode database in order to do the migration. So it's a very technical answer, but long story short, you need to think about today, if you're non-Unicode, what releases am I going to go to? So number one, moving to Suite on HANA, you can move to Suite on HANA from any version, non-Unicode and Unicode, very easily, right? That's a very proven, simple migration. We have a couple customers live on S4HANA 16.05 now, which is a tried and true release of S4 HANA for finance only. It does not impact the supply chain side. And then we have S4HANA 15.11 released way back in 2015 and S4 16.10. Now, a few notes about migrating. A lot of people have always wondered, or have often asked, can I move to Suite on HANA and then S4 HANA in one weekend? Right? Can I do that all in one step? Right? Can I migrate my system to HANA and activate S4 all in one step? And the answer is yes. With 15.11, the answer was yes. With 16.05, the answer was yes. With 16.10, what comes into play is if you're non-Unicode, then you might not be able to get to the version of S4 HANA that you want to all in the same weekend just because of all the activities that have to happen. So we have some considerations to make. Now, when moving to S4 the Go Live weekend, remember, you're moving your entire database to Suite on HANA, and then you're going through some pre- and post-activation steps within S4 HANA over that weekend. So you need to allow not only for the technical activities of the basis team, migrating you to HANA, and then the functional activities to activate S4, and then the business validation. In most scenarios, we've basically given the technical migration process of moving to a HANA database about 24 hours, and then the S4 activation and post-processing activities around 8 to 12 hours, and then 8 hours of validation. So we are able to fit within one weekend in doing that. In terms of which version of S4 HANA, there's really two versions that you would really consider moving to today. Number one is S4 HANA 16.05. So released in May of 2016, this version is essentially S4 HANA Finance with ERP6 Enhancement Pack 8 on HANA. So your finance is simplified. So we have the universal ledger, but logistics is not touched. So when talking about S4 16.05, what you're talking about is a system that has no business process change for the logistics environment, for sales, for distribution, for transportation, warehouse management. No change at all. They're essentially ERP6 Enhanced Pack 8. But finance team, they are moved to S4 HANA Finance. And that S4 HANA Finance release in 16.05 is technically equivalent to the S4 HANA 16.10 Finance release. So a little bit of confusion here within the customers, thinking that S4 HANA 16.10, that finance is somehow different than the S4 16.05. And the answer is no. So in S4 16.10, that's where SAP merged the product roadmaps. That's where they basically, it was a catch-up release. So the logistics simplifications caught up to the level of simplifications that were available in S4 16.05. Now, while S4 16.05 may be appealing and appetizing to a lot of you out there because it is innovation for the finance team, but no forced business process change for logistics, the only downside to the S4 16.05 release is that it is end of maintenance 5 years before S4 16.10. So end of maintenance for S4 Finance 16.05 is 2020. Now, S4 16.10, this is where we have a significant investment in the simplifications in logistics, SD, MM, WM, etc. We have forced business process change with S4 16.10. As an example, in S4 Finance 16.05, I still have a distinct customer master and a vendor master, two separate tables, because again, logistics is not really touched in S4 Finance 16.05. In S4 16.10, I must convert my customers and vendors to business partners. So I sort of have this unified business partner concept. That takes time and effort. There's pre-conversion activities. There's post-migration activities. So S4 HANA 16.10 is going to be more forced business process change. Within S4 Finance, we've seen it. We've proven it. In the logistics space, there's no forced business process change. In finance, there is some forced change in treasury and asset accounting, but AP, AR, GL, treasury, kind of all, AP, AR, GL, traditional finance, all really kind of can operate as is, but you have the new Fiori UI with Fiori 2.0, etc. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. one of the most common questions that we get is what is the hey, NIMBL, hey Michael, what is a common S/4HANA roadmap? And what I've drawn out here is a very common one. So up top, I have my business suite on any database that I might be on today. And in order to prepare for my Suite on HANA project, my Suite on HANA project or my S4 project, I really need to understand my business processes. I need to make sure I have those inventories so I know what people are using today. I need to understand my technical prerequisites, my kernel levels, my patch levels, my ABAP components, my third-party add-ons. I need to understand my integration scenarios. How is this system integrated with other systems? Are there any dependencies between CRM and SCM and S4, et cetera? So, when we use Solution Manager a lot for that, because Solution Manager has the ability to reverse document your business processes. I'll talk about that a little bit in the future slides. You want to reduce your technical tables. A lot of customers out there love to keep their IDOC tables, love to keep their RFC log tables, and I always equate that to keeping the envelope for your water bill, right? You get your water bill, you pay your water bill, and you're keeping the envelope. That's what the IDOC table is to me. They're just envelopes for water bills. So, purging all those technical tables, doing if I go down to the blue line now, the Business Suite on HANA and then eventually S4 HANA, we are seeing a lot of customers stair-stepping to S4. We are seeing customers move to Business Suite on HANA because it is a technical migration with no forced process change. It allows them to get on the HANA platform and then move to S4 HANA later. That's a very common roadmap right now. I think that might change because SAP with 1610, just because now the S4 product, before with S4 1511, that was the first enterprise management release, right? And people or CIOs weren't comfortable with going live on a first release of enterprise management, and so they were comfortable going with Business Suite on HANA. Because remember, Business Suite on HANA has been available for 4 years now, so it's tried and true and proven, and it's very easy to do. S/4HANA 1610, it is the go-to release now. I think we are seeing a lot of people choose that release and being able to go to that release directly. That being said, down on the blue line, I'm going to talk about ways that we can do Business Suite on HANA or S/4HANA proof of concepts in the cloud. Some very cool tools from SAP that allow us to do that. Using those cloud environments for UI roadshows, to do the gap analysis of S4 to ERP, what's different, what's changed, walk our business users through it. And then, as the roadmap continues, you see here, just as an example, one-step migration to Suite on HANA, selective UX improvements with Fiori, and then activating S/4HANA Enterprise Management or S/4HANA Enterprise Management or Finance later, continuing our Fiori roadmap. So this is a very common S4 roadmap that we're seeing in the marketplace. Wanted to visualize that. So right now we do have our first poll question. And what's fun about the poll questions is that as you answer them on screen, we can see the results live. So what is your path to S4 HANA? No path defined, looking into 1610 now, going live with 1709 in 2018, or S4 1605 finance is good for us. We'll give some people some time to answer those. Cool. So no path defined yet. And that's the impetus for this webinar, right, to help educate and inform and have people understand what are some decisions that I need to make to understand which S4 release that I'm going to go to. Cool. We've got over 50% respondents in, so we'll go ahead and keep it moving. Next slide. So in terms of go-live scenarios, one thing I just wanted to educate people on is you really, when we're doing enhancement pack projects or even just a Suite on HANA project, we're not really concerned with the time of year, right? It really kind of fits in the year. It needs to fit to the factory calendar, the financial calendar. When are we moving? When you're moving to S4 HANA, there are some requirements that SAP has laid out, and we'll talk about some exceptions to those in a little bit. But if you're a new GL, SAP recommends a period end cutover. Okay, and so if you think about this, this is the first time that SAP has provided a software solution to us where we can upgrade to it, but they're recommending essentially that we only have 11 weekends per year that we can go live with, right? If we have to go live on a period end, we're probably not going to do it on the year end because it's so important. So there's only 11 other weekends in a year where we can migrate to S4 HANA, to the Universal Ledger, based on SAP's recommendations today, as they're documented in the guide. If you are a customer that's running Classic GL, The classic GL right now, SAP only supports a year-end cutover to S/4HANA, right? So that limits your cutover planning to one weekend. As an example, we have a customer whose fiscal year-end is in September. They are classic GL, and they are non-Unicode. And so because of those decisions that they made in their landscape prior, they are now forced to move to Suite on HANA first because, again, there's no direct path to 1610 for non-Unicode. And number two, they can only go live once per year. So their roadmap is kind of defined for them. They can only go live on S/4HANA September, either this year or next year or the following year. Their roadmap's defined for classic GL. Now that being said, we're working with SAP for some approvals here. In January 2016, NIMBL did complete a mid-period go-live. Worked with a customer that had a financial end that was already a tight window. They had a lot of processing, and they needed to move. They needed to not go live on the period end weekend. So what we did is we allowed them to run their month end weekend as planned, and then a week after their month end, their true actual month end, we technically closed the periods in SAP, migrated to S4 Finance 1605, ran the post-processing migration, and everything went live without a hitch. So NIMBL has proven that we can do a mid-period go-live. This, again, goes against the recommendations from SAP's conversion guidelines. I want to formally put that out there. SAP does recommend a period and go-live. We have proven that a mid-period go-live is possible with the right precautions, with the right analysis and settings. We can do it. And we had an SAP going live verification. Everything is kosher. Everybody liked it. Everybody's happy. So we met the customer requirements. We went live month end plus 1 week, and everything was successful. So we're hoping that SAP will update their documentation to show that it is possible. Now, when running your S4 project, you're going to be introducing, ideally, you should be introducing a new methodology for activating S4. It's called SAP Activate. So this replaces the ASAP methodology. Now, the most important part of the Activate methodology is the explore phase, and specifically what's called the solution validation. So the solution validation is the opportunity to show your business users what does S4 look like, what does the business process in S4 look like, and then identify the gaps or the backlog of what's different, what do we need to change, what should we change, what could we change, what would we change, right? So prioritizing that backlog, and then doing a set of Delta design workshops where you're defining what is the to-be process going to be. Are we going to adapt to the standard S4 process moving forward, or are we going to adjust S4? So, you know, workshop A, workshop B, solution validation, very important part of the Activate methodology, which SAP has done a fantastic job of documenting and providing templates online that we can all use. And so NIMBL, having run a couple projects now, we're using SAP Activate and all the tools and templates that SAP provides. SAP Activate is also the first time that we're introducing Agile officially introducing Agile into SAP upgrades and migrations. So once we identify our backlog, right, so we run the solution validation workshops, we identify the backlog, we identify the solution, and then once we have that backlog defined, we are then carving up into sprints and truly leveraging Agile as we up until we get to integration test and user acceptance test for S/4HANA projects. Again, all of these templates are provided by SAP. They're absolutely fantastic. Now, one common myth that we get all the time is that the move to S/4HANA is a 10-month project, a 12-month project, an 8-month project. And the truth is, NIMBL is moving customers to S/4HANA in 4 to 5 months. Depending on financial calendar, depending on timelines, depending on business activity, seasonality in the business, et cetera, there's variation. But essentially, we're able to move customers successfully using SAP's best practice guides, using SAP Activate, using tools, software tools, and we're able to move customers to S/4HANA in 20 weeks. Now, there's some landscape strategies that come into play that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. And obviously, this is not a Microsoft project plan. This is just a high-level template kind of showing you the different phases. In week 1 to 6, we're system copying prod down to a sandbox. We're upgrading it twice, and I'll talk about why in a little bit. We capture activities. Week 6 to 10, we're doing our regression testing. We're doing our solution workshops, our regression testing. week 10 to 14, we're doing our integration and user acceptance testing. Then we're upgrading development. Then we're moving into QA in week 14 to 16, and then moving into production sometime in the 4th month to 5th month. So very successful at moving to S4HANA in these 4 to 5 month projects. I think, again, the big myth in the industry is that this takes a year. I'm going to talk about UI changes in a little bit. There are certain areas where UI changes are forced, and there are others where UI changes are not forced. And so if you like the SAP GUI transactions, in specific cases, you can continue to use those. SAP has deprecated some T codes and forced the fewer UI, but we'll talk about how we can accommodate that here shortly. Tools and templates. Number one, I mentioned that SAP, again, you'll have all the hyperlinks to these in the presentation. I cite my sources. I always say source SAP and provide you links to where I got this content. We're going to talk about the tools within SAP Activate. We have the Roadmap Viewer. We'll talk about that. We have trial systems that we can use, Best Practice Explorer, and Solution Manager. So I want to dive into that. Number one, you as a customer today, if you don't own S4, you still have the ability to use the Cloud Appliance Library, cal.sap.com, and you have the ability to go out there and activate an S4 system. So here on screen, I'm showing essentially SAP has provided a CAL image, Cloud Appliance Library image, within the Amazon environment or Microsoft Azure, whatever preference your IT organization has, where we can stand up a fully activated Business Objects S4 environment with 1610 with data, so that we have a place to show our business users this new UI to play through some scenarios. The S4 instance that stood up in the cloud aligns to SAP best practices. So SAP has a set of best practice configuration guides, so you can understand the data that's used in that appliance. You can understand the business processes in that appliance. Wonderful for exploring a system, for showing the users, and it takes about an hour, hour and a half to stand up, right? So these are very fast. Once you have a credit card associated to your Amazon account, your Azure account, you click play, these things go and fire up, and it's pay per minute, pay per month. People often ask, well, how much does it cost per month to run? You can, just assume $2,000 to $3,000 per month if you're going to run an S4 1610 system in Amazon ad hoc. Leave it on all the time for 30 days. It's going to be between $2,000 and $3,000 to run that full time throughout the month. You can obviously prepay, and that reduces your rates, etc. But SAP has provided S4 1610 images available to all customers, not just those licensed for S4. But if you're just investigating S4, it is possible to go out there and do that. Now, in this web in the meeting today, I don't have a lot of time to do live demos, but SAP has what's called the Best Practice Explorer. So if you want to know how to configure sales orders in S4 1610, how to configure plant maintenance in S4 1610, or how to configure treasury in S4 1610, this is where you go to find the how-to step-by-step configuration guides for all common business processes. Now, people will say, well, what about availability promise for configured items? Well, you know what? There's not a best practice for how to configure ATP for configured items. You got us there. But SAP, I think, has done a good job. They have well over 160 different business process templates out there where you can download the process maps, you can download the configuration guides. All the project accelerators are out here. rapid.sap.com/BP. You click on SAP S4HANA, you click on On-Premise, then you click on Localization for US. By default, it says Germany. Make sure you click on US. And then you're able to have all of the configuration templates and guides for S4HANA 1610. I think there's too much reliance in the space right now for customers to say, we need to find a consultant that's done materials management in S4. Everything for materials management, I say everything. At a high level, most scenarios for materials management are documented here in the Best Practice Explorer. You can read these documents. You can look at how S4HANA materials management works. You can understand the tables. You can understand the business processes using the Best Practice Explorer. So, kudos to SAP for creating this. Now, some call this marketing fluff. Some find value. Wanted to make sure you're aware of it. SAP has what's called business scenario recommendations, where we can basically share with SAP data from STO3N inside of ERP. We can share, again, you take data from your production ERP system, all the T codes and programs that people use, and you go to this website, s4hana.com. It is no cost. You don't need to be licensed for S4HANA. And essentially what this will do is it will, at a high level, it will map the transaction codes that your users use today to S4 business processes to help you understand where is potentially the greatest impact in moving to S4. What process areas are going to benefit most? Based on my usage today, what process areas are going to benefit most from S4? This is triggered by SAP. Your SAP account exec will probably know that you've run this and might be giving you a phone call, but it is just an additional source of information. So I've talked about the Cloud Appliance library and having pre-built activated S4HANA 1610 appliances available. I've talked about the Best Practice Explorer, being able to browse all standard S4 business processes and their corresponding configuration guides. Now I'm talking about the Business Suite Recommendations Report, which I can run, which analyzes my current transactions and maps those to S4 processes. Next, I want to talk about Solution Manager. So Solution Manager has a new look and feel with Solution Manager 7.2. It has a graphical business process model viewer, graphical business process modeling tool. And this modeling tool has the capability of importing the S4HANA business process templates automatically, right? So you have Solution Manager 7.2. There's an option to import business processes. You import those S4 1610 business processes provided by SAP, and that's what we're looking at here. So here we're looking at a business process called create quotation, sales order, delivery, transfer order, etc. And I have 3 swim lanes. Well, in your environment, this may not fit you, right? And so you're able to, in Solution Manager, able to adapt the S4HANA SAP provided business process templates. You're able to add your own role identifications. You're able to add to these process flows yourself. So you can add custom steps, interfaces, enhancements, user exits, everything you need to document your business processes, we now have as a graphical modeler inside Solution Manager 7.2. Now, another way of viewing it is a system view. So this is, the first view that I showed you was a process view, so by salesperson, warehouse clerk, and accountant, right, the different swim lanes. Fantastic for security people because now they know what's used. And then I have a system view. So if I have a business process that spans multiple systems, I have the ability to look at a system view as well. Now, most of you out there that use Solution Manager or have it installed but don't use it, don't know that Solution Manager can actually help you jumpstart your business process documentation process. So Solution Manager has a tool called Business Process Step Generation, which essentially will, in Solution Manager 7.2, it will use an RFC to connect to your ERP system. It will use early watch data if you have it, and it will reverse document every T code and program, both standard and custom, used by your business users, and populate that into the business process repository in Soulman. So inside Solution Manager, you'll have every T code I use today, and you'll have the business process templates provided by SAP. Now, I'm not saying that this is an easy button in that it's going to map that for you. It definitely doesn't do that. But what it does do is give everybody the source material that they need in order to do that gap identification. So now we have our next question. What version of Solution Manager are you running today? Don't know. So I'm running Solution Manager 7.1, planning, I'm upgrading, or wait, I didn't know I had to upgrade Soulman. We'll let folks fill that out. All right. Great. So most of you are planning your upgrade, about almost a tie with upgrading and process. And then there's one surprise person on the phone that had no idea they had to upgrade Soulman. No problem there. All right, everybody. Third-party tools. Again, this is the tool section of the presentation. I wanted to talk about 2 tools that I think add value. These are paid products, so I want to put that out there, number one. They're paid products that you need them. You'd have to purchase them if you like the solution here. 2 things when it comes to deploying S4. You have organizational change that's going to happen. So how do we manage that change? How do we train our end users? And how do we make that training efficient and as helpful as possible? So that's one challenge. The second challenge is when you're deploying S4HANA, because it's Fiori applications, there is no data inside of S4 around STO3N or STAD, the traditional monitoring transactions that we have to monitor who's running what Fiori tile. Right? We don't get that data in ST3N today. So if you're deploying S4HANA and you're deploying Fiori tiles, how do you measure what people are using and what are they not using and where are they having issues and errors? Right? So there's two tools we're going to talk about that kind of solve that problem. The first tool related to education is within the Fiori Launchpad that you can see here on your slide. Workforce Performance Builder will provide an overlay on the Launchpad so that when someone clicks the question mark in the Fiori Launchpad, it'll bring up this gray bar on the bottom where we can provide some documentation about, hey, welcome to Fiori Launchpad, and this is how you navigate, and these are the tabs, and this is how you add an app, right? And then within an application, we can then also create an educational overlay. So in this example, we're in display customer balances, I believe. And within display customer balances, if someone didn't know how to use this application, they click the question mark in the upper right, and it provides an overlay over the screen, over their Fiori app, that gives them access to educational content. So we can create reference points on the screen. We can add Word documents, PowerPoints, links to videos, all sorts of things. So Workforce Performance Builder, again, is a pay product, but I think from an education perspective and organizational change management, if you have a large distributed workforce that you need to get trained in S4 and how to use Fiori, this might be a good solution for you because, again, it's embedded in the Fiori Launchpad. I don't have to go to a SharePoint site. I don't have to go to another website. I'm using the application. I click Help, and I have access to help information. The second tool I wanted to talk about is KNOA's User Experience Management. So some of you may already own KNOA. Some of you don't have any idea what KNOA does. But essentially, it's an agent-based deployment that allows you to monitor how people are using the system. What Fiori apps are they opening? How often are they opening? How many screens? How many users are using them? How much time are they spending in the Fiori apps? Because this gives you data around where people are spending their time and what apps they're using and not using. And then more importantly, it gives you information about the error messages that people receive inside of their Fiori apps. Right? So if you have an error message always being displayed for a group of users or a location, this might signal an opportunity to either improve the configuration or improve the business process. This might signal an opportunity to go out and retrain those users. So User Experience by KNOA is the only tool that I'm aware of that can actively monitor how people are using the system so that you understand where they're having issues and where they're not. Because oftentimes, again, when we have geographically distributed user base, we don't know, or we don't have that super user network that is providing the feedback to us about what transactions do people hate, what transactions do people love, where are we having our challenges, where are there process slowdowns. So User Experience Management, I know, again, is a pay product. It's an agent deployment. The data is stored in the cloud, and we can use analytic tools. There's some reporting provided by KNOA out of the box. But we can also connect up our own business objects platform and write our own reports. So whether you like to use Tableau or Lumira or Analysis for Office or Webby, you can connect to this data and write reports over it as well. So I don't usually like to talk about third-party tools, but these two tools essentially it's like buying an insurance policy, right? Making sure your users are educated on the screens that are provided to them with S4HANA, and KNOA making sure that we're actively monitoring the usage of the application so we understand who's doing what and who's having challenges. So migration strategies. There's a lot of people out there that have different strategies, and I think most customers are very, very comfortable with the Fie System Landscape. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. For me, the Fie System Landscape enables us to be lazy. It enables us to run very long projects with no deadlines and not get them done. And so here I'm going to talk a little bit about what's called a force system landscape. So a force system landscape is when I have my production support landscape, and I copy down to a project landscape, just one system. I upgrade and migrate it to S4HANA. Right? So just visualize this in your head. We're going to step through this quickly because we need to complete the presentation, but you'll have this material as a reference later. And as always, you can ask questions in the chat box or ask us via email, and we'll get those answered. Week 3 to 10, you do it again. Right? And people always ask, well, would you upgrade and migrate twice? Well, two things. One, I need to test the automated import of my spouse bud transport with my upgrade for production. Right? I don't like to create my spouse SPDD transports from dev because dev never looks like production. That's number one. Number two, I need to practice my S4 activation procedures, right? There is a whole data conversion, data migration workbench that we have to run through. And to be candid, we've run through that workbench at multiple customers. We always have an error. We always have an issue. And typically we have 2 to 3, we've had 2 to 3 OSS notes created through that process, and SAP has been very good about resolving them. The response time on S4HANA migration issues is fantastic right now. You enter an issue for Soulman or TDMS, and it might take a week. You enter an issue for an S4HANA migration, it takes 12 hours, right? It's wonderful. We do it twice. We do the S4HANA migration to that project system, that support system twice. And we actually do our regression testing in that system connected to all our other systems and not disrupting production support. So weeks 1 through 10, you have no code freeze and production support is operating as is. Right? Week 10, we upgrade development to S4HANA. We break the transport route to QA. This is when your soft freeze starts. Your changes in QA can live on into prod. We rebuild the support system as an emergency support path. Right? There's different ways of doing this, but week 10 to 14, you've upgraded development, you're unit testing in dev, you're fixing some more defects, you're activating the Fiori apps, you're getting all that stuff deployed very, very quickly. Week 14 to 16, you've upgraded QA. You might have another UAT, you might have a small UAT or a full UAT here. This might be a flex point for you. It might take you 2 weeks, it might take you 3 weeks. But Dev and QA, they're on S4. Production is not, and we have a support system down below that is used for emergency support, emergency break-fix transports. So here we are in a hard code freeze at this point, right? Dev and QA are upgraded. We really don't want to start new development support system because, again, my 4-system landscape, because I'm using only 4 systems, I've repurposed support system now, is the leanest, quickest, cheapest way to get to S4. We're going to talk about the 5-system in a little bit. And then week 16 to 20, as you complete your testing and your sign-offs, you do the production migration based on, period end or period end plus 1 week that we talked about earlier. And then you have that support system enabled in case you need to roll back. So that's how we typically handle our projects. We use the 4-system landscape. As always, if you needed to, 5, that up top that should say 5-system landscape, not Fie. The 5-system landscape here, we have 5 systems involved. This is the most expensive way to do a project because, again, on the project support landscape down below, you have a development S4, you have a QA S4, but then you have to match that up to a CRM system or a PO system or a BW system. And SAP's like rabbits with the 5-system landscape, right? But with the 4-system landscape, we're able to use systems a little bit more, we're able to use systems differently. So, just throwing this out there, this is totally an opinion question. What is your preferred landscape strategy? We like the 5-system landscape. 4 systems new to us. 4-system, you've done it or you have no idea. We'll leave that question out there for people to answer. Now, there's always some heated debate here, and I ended up doing a lot of whiteboarding and drawing when I talk about that 5-system landscape versus 4-system landscape because it's a unique way to approach it, but it has been successful. All right, we've just passed the 50% mark on respondents. 5-system landscape trusted. When we know it is trusted and it does work. It's just so darn expensive having all those systems. Great. All right, change management. So as part of, again, this presentation is about planning and scoping. This presentation is about planning and scoping your S4 project. Well, we need to think about change management. How do we manage transports? How do we avoid manual dual entry? That is the worst. I hate manual dual entry. I hate making people do config in 2 systems. The goal is to provide a consistent landscape. Well, we do this with Solution Manager. Solution Manager has 3 sort of change management related tools. You have ITPPM, which is a cool project management tool. I haven't used it on an S4 project yet, to be completely candid, so I just want to let you know it's available, but we're not going to cover it in depth in this presentation. You have change request management, CHARM, and then you have quality gate management, which is sort of CHARM's stepsister that no one really uses. So quality gate management has all the technical capabilities of CHARM, just no user interface. If I want transport automation, transport approval, transport workflow, retrofit, cross-system object lock, all these cool capabilities that CHARM brings, but I don't want to use the CHARM UI. I don't want to use change documents. I just want the technical capabilities. Well, that's quality gate management, right? So during a project, Retrofit is the only SAP-supported tool to provide cross-platform, cross-version transports. And so you heard me correct. SAP's only supported tool for cross-version, meaning I want to import from ERP on Oracle to ERP on HANA or ERP on Oracle to S4. If I want to do that import, if I knowingly want to do that, the only way to do that legally from SAP is using Retrofit. And cross-platform. So again, if I'm going from non-HANA to HANA, Retrofit supports cross-platform transports. So Retrofit is available with QGM and Charm, and it's in Solution Manager 7.1 and 7.2. There is no requirement to have 7.2 for cross-system object lock or Retrofit. 7.1 works perfectly, but obviously we want everybody to be on 7.2 because of the business process modeling stuff. Now, if you have that Fie System Landscape, how do you prevent developers from stepping on each other's toes? We prevent them from stepping on each other's toes by using cross-system object lock. And here in this very basic diagram, I have a program that's in the production support landscape, and I have a program in the project landscape. If my project team starts modifying that program, cross-system object lock is a table inside of Solution Manager, and it creates an entry. And then when the production support resource might try to change that same program, they're going to get a message on screen saying, this object is locked by this developer on this system, and then those two team members can communicate. They can determine, hey, should I remove my lock to allow yours, etc. So cross-system object lock, if you have geographically dispersed teams, you have some onshore, you have some offshore, you have two different landscapes, it's a wonderful tool for just ensuring that people, both developers and configuration resources, because it works both ways, are not stepping on each other's toes. Now that we talked about change management, now we need to talk about your custom code, right? Because you're going to be doing two types of custom code analysis when you embark on your Suite on HANA S4HANA journey. You first need to understand, will my code, my ABAP code that I've written, my custom code, will it even run on HANA? So let's forget about S4 for a minute. Will my ABAP code run on HANA? And that's one analysis. Analyze all custom code to figure out what's not compatible with HANA. And there are really two kind of scenarios that we see most here. If you have ABAP code that's calling SQL procedures, like an Oracle or SQL Server, obviously those SQL procedures won't exist in HANA or yet until you write them. So you're going to need to find any ABAP code that's using the exec SQL statement. Next, the next most common error with ABAP code is using cluster or pool tables without an order by statement. So SAP does things a little bit different on HANA. If you don't have that order by clause in your ABAP code, then it potentially would return a different result set in a different order that the ABAP program wasn't expecting. Very easy, very basic stuff. We're going to walk through that. And then, so you first run an analysis of, will my ABAP code run on HANA? Then you need to understand, will my ABAP code run in S4? Because S4 has table simplifications, right? 23 tables in finance become 1. 27 tables in materials becomes 1. Will my ABAP code work with S4? And SAP has provided tools for us to do that. Now, it's important to know that you can run your ABAP on HANA analysis and your ABAP S4 impact analysis at any point, right? So I don't need to be licensed for S4. I can do this today. If I'm not moving to S4 until next year, I can run my ABAP on HANA analysis today and start identifying code to fix today. I don't need to wait till my project. I don't need to wait till next year. You can do this today. So ABAP on HANA, you need to download these notes that I have on here, and you're going to run these templates provided by SAP called Functional DB and Functional DB Edition. It's a very easy to read report, SCI, SAP Code Inspector, very easy to use. Red light, green light, we all know red's bad. We drill on those objects and we find those programs. I always like to run a pool or a lottery that kind of, hey, what developer has the most errors on HANA, That's always fun. As a basis guy at heart, I love to always blame the developer. And just like developers always like to blame us, basis. Now, for the S4 HANA ABAP compatibility, we have some differences. Number one, SAP only built the S4 ABAP compatibility analysis within NetWeaver 750. So if you don't have a NetWeaver 750 system on-premise, if you think back to my slide earlier, the Cloud Appliance library, cal.sap.com, cal.sap.com has NetWeaver 750 ABAP systems available as an image that you can start on Azure or Amazon. And then use the cloud-based system to do this analysis. So you install this node, you execute this program, you download the zip file, you run a T code, and essentially you get an ABAP on HANA report, an ABAP S4 compatibility report that lets you know all ABAP code in your environment that you've written that potentially is not compatible with S4 1610. It's a very easy to do. It's just a matter of finding that NetWeaver 750 system in order to run it on. So if you don't have a NetWeaver 750 in your landscape, then you might want to check out cal.sap.com and activate one there. The next poll question, when do you plan on running your ABAP compatibility for S4HANA? Some of you may have already done this. Some of you didn't know that it was available. We'll let everybody respond. And again, NIMBL wants to solicit feedback on our webinars. We like to do these poll questions just so the audience gets a feel for the other people on the webinar as to where is everybody at, who's moving to S7.2 and who's not, who's moving to S4 and who's not, and ABAP compatibility. So we've moved across the 50% respondents mark. Nobody asked what ABAP was, so that's good. But it looks like a majority of you didn't know you could run this now, and you can. And again, you don't need to be licensed for S4 to run this. The notes and the tools are all available to all SAP customers. As long as you're paying maintenance and you have the ability to download notes, then you're good. All right, moving along. So project team members, and there's a different project team members. Obviously your stakeholder, your managers, but the two most important people on this slide are not basis and ABAP. For S4, the test manager and test coordinator are the most important resources on an S4 migration project. The test manager is responsible for test cycle planning, defining the test strategy, defining the test cycles, defining who's supporting the test cycles, defining the defect tracking mechanism, how we're going to report statuses, how are we going to run these test cycles, where are we running them, logistically, how are we running them, what people are coming in and when. That's the test manager's role. The test coordinator role is a tactical resource that is walking the halls and helping the business analysts understand what test cases are they responsible for, helping them understand what test data needs to be created, helping them understand when they need to have their test scripts built and who's going to be executing those test scripts. Testing is the most difficult part of the S4 project. The basis team, yes, we have our challenges where we have to do installs and we have to click next and we have to run some and in DMO and we have to prepare systems. That's complex. But the most complex part is number one, the functional analysts running their gap fit workshops and understanding the change to the business processes. And number two, the testing team, being able to test efficiently, being able to test quickly. Now, question on the team, I almost forgot the security team. Of course, security is important here because the security administrator world is also changing when you move to S4HANA. Today at the database layer, we have a situation, today at the database layer, nobody has a database user ID, right? The basis team might have a user ID to the database, but essentially no one signs into the database directly. Well, this changes in the S4 world because some analytical Fiori tiles provided by SAP require a HANA user ID. So the security team is going to need to take on application security within S4, Fiori security, right, securing tiles and securing the launchpad, and they're also going to need to take on HANA security and being able to provide user IDs at the HANA database layer for specific Fiori tiles, because there's some Fiori tiles that use HANA Live, and those Fiori tiles require HANA user ID. So security world changes a lot. Obviously, tester, developer, and HANA modeler. And there was one role that got cut off on the prior slide, and that was the functional analyst. Functional analyst, absolutely important, right, because they understand the configuration today. They need to understand how the business process works in the future. But again, to me, all these people are important, but the people that are most important on an S4 project are the test lead and test coordinator. Those people have the most impact to ensure that we meet our 20-week timeline or 24-week timeline, whatever it is for your organization. Testing is the most difficult part. Getting everybody in the room, coordinating, test data, test execution, that's the most difficult part. So test, I've said it multiple times. Now, just to understand what everybody thinks out there on the webinar today, what is your most important project team member role, just to understand everybody else's perspective out there? And respondents coming in, obviously it depends on your role on this as well. Basis is absolutely critical because they're the ones actually doing the migration. And that's pretty well documented, by the way. The migration to S4 is very well documented. I think the basis people will be happy with the some DMO process there. What is difficult is testing I talked about, but the second piece is actually the pre and the post-migration activities completed by the functional analysts, installing all of the S4 prerequisite notes, pre-migration, post-migration, post-activation, et cetera, because those are all different steps. But what's good is those are all sufficiently documented. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and try to address some of the questions that we have. We have 11 questions out there. I'm going to go ahead and Jake, did you want to read those questions out loud?
Yeah, Mike, I can read them to you. All right, so Sid asked the first question, says, might be a longer explanation, but can you please explain the difference between Business Suite on HANA and S4 on HANA?
So Business Suite on HANA is ERP, essentially ERP EHP7 or ERP EHP8 on HANA, right? So there's no application, very little application enhancement. So I'm running ERP on HANA. Business Suite on HANA is ERP on HANA. S4 on HANA, S4 is a new product, right? It's a new product line, new product code base. It has the simplification of tables. So ERP on HANA, other than being in memory, is just like ERP on Oracle or SQL. There's no application change, no forced application change. That being said, SAP has made enhancements available to Suite on HANA. For example, if you're running ERP on HANA, there's new H transactions, HANA optimized versions of the transactions. So I hope I answered that question. And if you have more, you can send us an email. It's listed on the slide, and I'll get those details for you. The next question?
Yeah, Paul writes in the requirement for year-end cutover, the classic GL. Haven't seen the information from SAP in this regard. What SAP source document documents this?
So Paul, we have your details here. I'll send you the source document. That is, if you go to help.sap.com and in the search box type 1610, you'll get the S4HANA 1610 on-premise page, and then you'll click on the conversion guide, and those notes around non-Unicode are in that conversion guide. I'm sorry, on Classic GL are in that conversion guide. So that is well documented. We will also send that to you directly.
All right. Mike asks, isn't a move to S4 1610 from a non-Unicode system possible with the greenfield approach?
And the answer there, Mike, is yes, absolutely. With the greenfield approach, everybody, we're installing a brand new system and potentially just migrating data over. Might be using SLT, might be using data services. So if you're greenfield, definitely you're standing up a brand new 1610 instance, you can do that. This presentation today, I'm really focusing on those customers that are upgrading and migrating, right? So those customers that have said, I like my system, I don't need to go greenfield, I'm going to just upgrade and migrate to S4 in my current environment. That's what this presentation today was geared towards. So I hope I answered your question, Mike.
Jitendra asks, what SAP back-end systems are needed to show the value of HANA and use SAP Activate?
So SAP Activate is both tools and methodology. So you have your best practices Explorer that I talked about earlier, rapid.sap.com, where you have the Activate methodology and the templates. In terms of tools, we have Solution Manager, which supports SAP Activate, and the business process modeling, and all the different tools within Soulman. In terms of showing the value of HANA, I think that every S4 customer should have or already has the BI platform, the Business Objects platform. Yes, you have Fiori. Yes, you have S4HANA, and the transactions are simplified in the Fiori UI. But if you really want to highlight the power of S4HANA, analytics is a silver bullet. It is analytics on S4 is absolutely fantastic. It's always impressive. Being able to connect analysis for Office, being able to connect to Lumira directly to S4, directly to CDS views, to highlight the analytic capabilities of S4 with that transactional processing is absolutely fantastic.
All right. Gautam asks, how hard is it for business users to adopt the new interface, and how much training time could be a reasonable time to consider for project planning?
So the statement I'm about to make, some might be disappointed, some might be happy. So with S/4HANA 1610, we have Fiori 2.0, and SAP has created the ability to add SAP transactions to Fiori tiles and have them look Fiori-like. That being said, they are not Fiori apps. It is a Fiori tile calling an SAP T code. So in the Fiori app catalog, when you see that S/4 1610 says 7,000 Fiori apps, the truth is SAP didn't write 7,000 Fiori apps. The truth is that 60 to 80% of those apps in the Fiori catalog for 1610 are just using the SAP T code. Now that SAP T code, SAP GUI HTML, is being presented within Fiori 2.0, so it looks a little bit like Fiori, but it is not a Fiori app. So in terms of the user adoption, I think there's also a lot of fear in the marketplace around the user adoption because a lot of the tiles are calling SAP T codes. People know the T codes. They're just the save buttons in the lower right instead of the upper left, right? And so yes, there is some training that happens there. Secondly, in terms of user adoption, people love enterprise search within the Fiori Launchpad. To me, this is the greatest innovation for the business user, is the ability to have essentially Google-like search ability, enterprise search, in the Fiori Launchpad. So if I'm looking for a specific document number in accounting, I don't need to open up the accounting document Fiori app. I can type in the accounting number in the search field, and it pulls up every reference to that document inside my entire S4 system. So I hope I answered your question there around user adoption. Let's go ahead and skip to the S4HANA requires question.
All right. S4HANA requires a lot. This is from Nagarajan. S4HANA requires a lot of data migration activities such as BP conversion and finance migration. How is it possible to convert to S4HANA 1610 in one weekend?
So here, there's always an asterisk, right? Because I don't know if the environment you're talking about is 20 terabyte, or if it's 12 terabyte, or if it's 2 terabyte, right? Size matters when converting to HANA in one weekend because we have a lot of data that we need to move. Now, we've had customers up to 12 terabyte, and we're able to do it all in one weekend. So typically, we take the system on a Friday night, and we start. Number one, before the Friday night even happens, we run all of the S4 preparation activities. So we install all the S4 1610 preparation notes. We run all the pre-migration, pre-conversion programs. We're actually converting it to business partners. While we're still in ERP, we're converting to business partners pre-migration, right? So there's all these pre-activities that we run before the Friday night. So the Friday night happens. We take the system away from the business users. We take our snapshots of our financials and our procurement and our data, et cetera, and we say basis go. They go, the system goes down, the system comes back. Typically, we've done it as short as 18 hours, depending on size, as short as 12 to 18 hours, no more than 24. So now you're at Saturday night. Saturday night, the system comes back, and then the finance team and the logistics teams, they sign in and they run through the S4HANA workbench, and they run their different programs and applications. At this stage in the game, horsepower is king in that I have multiple jobs I need to run, and they need to run in certain sequences, and I also need to run them fast. And so having multiple app servers here does come into play. So again, there's an asterisk. I don't know your environment, but typically, on Saturday night, we started the data conversion workbenches and running those processes. We're completing now, typically by Sunday morning at 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. We're then running IT validation from 6 a.m. to 10 or noon. And then at noon, we bring the business users in for their validation on Sunday on noon. And by 4 to 5 to 6 p.m. on Sunday, we have our go, no-go decision. And then we start our reprocessing. So we might turn on some BW extracts, our PI, EDI interfaces, our CRM interfaces, firing the system back up, letting background jobs catch in, and we're releasing the system back to the users at midnight. So we have cutover plan documentation. We can send you some examples of how we're doing this in one weekend.
All right, we are reaching the hour mark, and we can stick around, Mike, if you have just a couple more minutes, just for maybe one or two more questions. Yes. I will say that any questions that haven't been answered, we will respond to in an email, so don't worry about it. And as I mentioned before, everybody will be receiving an edited copy of the presentation. So Naresh asks, we are a utility-based company with ERP 6. With Enhancement Package 7 with SAP CSS Billing. Do we have a path to migrate to S4HANA for utilities with CSS Billing?
Well, Naresh, you definitely stumped the speaker on this one. I'd have to review the S4 note for the functions that you're using. I know that IS Utilities, IS Oil, IS Retail, you all have the asterisk when it comes to S4 migration documentation. We'll go ahead and find that answer for you and send that in an email.
All right. Satish asks, apart from the third-party tool, is there any way that we can have performance monitoring in S4HANA?
So Satish, and apologies if I confused everybody, you can do performance monitoring in S4HANA from a database application server perspective. So if I want to know how, background job processing, if I want to know CPU memory allocations and what's being utilized, yes, I can do that absolutely. I can monitor my gateway server with my Fiori apps to understand the utilization there. But right now in Solman, in STAD and S203N, in the monitoring tools provided by SAP, I have no way of monitoring specific Fiori app performance. All right? The only way for me to do that is to use a NOA type tool, user experience management, and capture that application-specific runtime from the user's front end. I have no way to do that inside Solution Manager today.
All right. We can take one or two more. Regarding Paul asks, regarding 4 or 5 system landscape, they're on Oracle right now, ECC6, and therefore they have to upgrade their hardware and repurpose or retire their old hardware post-conversion. So, quote, I don't see why our 5 system landscape is too expensive.
Paul, there's always different use cases and scenarios. For most customers that have a 5-system landscape, number one, they don't just run ERP. And they might run PI, they might run CRM, they might run BW, they always run BW, right, or SCM. And so when I have to build out a 5-system landscape, that means I need to have a 5-system landscape for BW and SCM and CRM and PI. And so everything just replicates. That's why we really like the 4-system landscape, because it's limiting the number of project-based systems that I'm using. So I only need to build an additional PI system, BW system, CRM system, etc. So there's a million ways to skin this cat. I've tried to push that 4-system landscape because in general it has seemed to motivate customers to move more quickly to S4. And we actually developed this when we were doing enhanced packs, and it comes from a friend of mine named Doug at CSC. So Doug Whiting actually coined the phrase 4-system landscape. So I need to give a shout out to him, Doug at CSC. Last question.
All right. And we'll do one last question. Sriram asks, for greenfield scenarios, is it better to first go to central finance and then to S4?
I'm going to give you my personal opinion. My personal opinion for me is I do not see any value in central finance. For those of you that look at central finance, it is just the general ledger. And again, in my opinion, there is not a lot of value in just having my general ledger inside of S4 and still doing AP and AR and treasury inside of my ERP system. So I don't get the value of all the S4 Fiori apps. I only get value in that I have the universal ledger in one system for better reporting and processing within the GL. That's all I get. Right? I don't get all the other benefits. So for me, and then when you run a central finance system, I have 2 support staff. I have application support staff that need to support ERP, and then S4. So I've doubled my maintenance, doubled my support, and the only benefit I've gotten is the universal ledger. So that's a personal opinion for me. I'm sure there's other people that will argue with me. I don't see a ton of value in central finance, and I honestly have no customers that are using it today.
All right, that wraps it up for us. As I mentioned, we will be answering any questions that we didn't get to answer. I want to thank Mike so much for the presentation and for everybody showing up. On your way out, if you can fill out the comment section, because we'd love to know what you liked about the presentation, what you'd like us to add, and as far as subjects in the future that you'd like us to cover. We'd love it if you fill out the comment box fully. So again, Mike, thanks so much for the presentation. I want to thank everybody for joining us, and have yourself a great weekend.
Thanks, Jake. Have a great weekend, everybody.